Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing. We had a little channel mix up. Karen, it's almost certainly my mistake. Karen is on the, Karen Kwiatkowski is on the Peaceful Evolution channel, and I ended up, so I took agorism. That's all my mistake. Sorry about that, guys. So, I assume everybody can hear me. Sound division okay. Thanks, Bernie. Hey, Charles. Okay, thanks, Alan. Yeah, major division by 0. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and talk. The topic of my presentation is open source evolution, excuse me, open source peaceful evolution for fun and profit. So I want to chat with you about that today. This is kind of a meta or Uber concept I've hobbled together from a bunch of other ideas I found both inside and outside the Liberty community. My own personal philosophical journey started as kind of really amorphous. I remember being very much anti the death penalty. And then when I was a small kid, I moved in with my dad, and he cheered when he saw some guy get the death penalty on TV. So and then I was kind of indoctrinated by him into conservatism. In college, in high school and college, I kind of went more kind of liberal to kind of just a out and out statist. And I read Ayn Rand finally after college, and recently kind of found my way in the right direction recently, in a place where I'd always kind of been. So I've been through a lot in that sense, and so I've read a lot, everything from Che Guevara's guerrilla warfare manual to absolutely every single book that Ayn Rand wrote. So and this concept, this open source peaceful evolution concept, draws on a lot of that. So my inspirations really range from Mohandas Gandhi and Ian Freeman to Eric Raymond and John Robb. Che Guevara and Wikipedia have played a role, and really there's just so many that have played a role, can't remember them all. And not all of their ideas will find expression in this particular talk, and of course, any mistakes or absolute idiocies are my own responsibility. Open source peaceful evolution. Let's consider these words. Open source. This refers to a process that is open. Anyone can participate. Anyone can see and use the resulting product. For example, open source software. The browser Firefox is open source software. The web server Apache that everyone uses is open source software. There is so much open source software involved in everything we do. This website runs on open source software entirely, from the operating system all the way up. And open source software is produced in a very anarchistic, decentralized, and non-hierarchical way. The people who do it aren't explicitly aware of this, not all the time. But for example, Eric Raymond's book, The Cathedral and the Bazaar, and that doesn't mean bizarre as in weird, that means bizarre as in a marketplace, is a really great short book on how open source operates. Eric is a software developer and a libertarian, and I think he might be an anarchist as well. So he really gets the power of liberty, voluntary cooperation, decentralization, and egalitarianism. The Cathedral and the Bazaar is just about comparing two different concepts. Concepts that in the liberty community we tend to see over and over again. The cathedral, as is if, for example, think of Middle Ages Europe-ish. The let's just make sure I'm still broadcasting. You guys still with me? All right, looks like it. So, in the Middle Ages, Europe kind of time, the cathedral was a ornate, very tall building, very hierarchical in nature. Things came down from the top. The priest, the Pope, it gives orders to the cardinals, and then the bishops, and then the priests, and it's almost military in terms of the organization chart. And the bazaar, on the other hand, which in our parlance we would call it the agora, is very level, very egalitarian, very non-hierarchical, networked, like the iron web of Larkin Rose. And so he was saying, the way that the bazaar works is much more productive. It's just all around better than the cathedral, the hierarchy. And that's a really great book, and it's a good introduction to this kind of stuff. I haven't read it in about 10 years, and I definitely need to reread that. It's a great book. So let's take a look at the words peaceful evolution. I first heard this combination of words from Ian Freeman, the host of Free Talk Live in Keene, New Hampshire, the Free Keene guy, and our gold sponsor for this conference. Thank you, Ian. That's freekeene.com. Without our speakers and our sponsors, we couldn't do this. So if you could please, click through to our sponsors' websites and see if, they have something of value to you. So I first heard those words from Ian, and peaceful to me means without violence or force, with listening, with an open mind, with not just talk. So, for example, last night we were watching Civ, a documentary that has not really come out of the libertarian community. It is a little bit challenging to libertarians. It's not going to line up perfectly. It's not going to, fit like a puzzle piece with libertarian ideology. But it's a really interesting documentary. It's got some useful things. And I noticed some of the early comments were, what? What's this movie doing here? Why did George pick this movie? These environmentalists, this, that, that's not right. This is not, okay. That's fine. I mean, everybody's entitled to their opinion, but those folks weren't listening. How are we going to work with other people? How are we going to achieve our goals if we don't understand other people with other views? And if we don't understand, if we're not listening to them, if we don't give them a chance, then we can't understand them. We can't work with them. We can't find points of commonality. Evolution means a gradual process and not a sudden thing. And I often contrast that with the concept of revolution, which tends to be something that happens fast. And, if it doesn't drag on forever, like the FARC guerrillas in Colombia. Whereas, a revolution is fast, like the things that have been happening in Egypt and Libya and all that. But evolution is a slow process. It's gradual. And so, you put it, and that's kind of where Gandhi's satyagraha and voluntarism come into play in this concept. And so, open source peaceful evolution, you could say it's a concept for a gradual move using peaceful means, using a non-hierarchical organization to get to where we want to go. Now, we have things like the Free State Project, and other, where the concept of states' rights, that doesn't really have much of a place in this concept. My idea is that we have to free people. So it's not about freeing states, freeing countries, whatever. It's about freeing individuals. Okay, we have to bring it down to the individual level. This is about the evolution of humanity towards complete liberty using peaceful means while preparing liberty lovers to not only survive but thrive in an atmosphere of aggression. And that's kind of where agorism comes into the concept. It's based on the voluntarist concept of peaceful evolution and the voluntarist emphasis on education and self-improvement, while incorporating the revolutionary insights and strategies of agorism, the principles of open source organization that have worked so well for Linux, Wikipedia, and even IBM. And perhaps this part might be surprising to you, tactical insights from the kind of resilient insurgency that you see in Iraq, which kind of goes under the names fourth generation warfare or fifth generation warfare. So I'm just going to do a little check to make sure everybody's still with me. Excellent, you're still with me. Thanks, guys. So this brings me to especially the fourth and fifth generation warfare stuff. This brings me to John Robb's website called Global Guerrillas. And that's guerrilla as in, resistance fighter. Guerrilla, they say in Spanish. So it's Global Guerrillas, that's with 2 R's and 2 L's, .typepad.com. And I really suggest that you subscribe via RSS or email to this website because there are a lot of insights that are not going to fit like puzzle pieces like that movie last night. They're not going to fit like puzzle pieces into the libertarian ideologies or systems of thought. And that is what makes these kinds of things so valuable because they force us to rethink. They force us to make stuff like Rothbard come alive again today in new ways that are relevant for us in our time period. Rothbard may be interesting and all, but it needs to be renewed. Anyway, so John Robb's got this one article, and he's been writing about this for a year, about the Bazaar's open source platform, and he has dozens of great articles. I couldn't show them all to you in one sitting. And here we have the Bazaar concept. He's been influenced by Eric Raymond, the Linux developer that I was telling you about, who wrote the book The Cathedral and the Bazaar. And his thing is, he was in the Air Force, and they didn't really listen to him. So he's doing his thing now, talking about fourth generation warfare, network tribes, resilient communities, systems disruption. This is the part where it gets kind of interesting for us, and the emerging bazaar of violence. However, while he studies these ideas from a point of view of violence, we can use them to apply to what we do. So he analyzes the resistance in Iraq, which is a violent thing, and he even quotes Eric Raymond here, and he says here are the factors that apply. He's kind of abstracted some principles from what he's observed in the Iraqi resistance. And these are very relevant to us. I'll get right into them. Release early and often. This is an open source software thing. Try new forms of attacks against different types of targets early and often. How does this apply to us? Don't spend 6 months developing, the perfect website. Roll something out that's quick and dirty now and just keep improving it. Okay, that's just one way. Given a large enough pool of co-developers, any difficult problem will be seen as obvious by someone and solved. How does this apply? We are developers. We're developers of liberty and solutions for liberty. And so we need to stay connected and help each other work on problems. Collaboration. Your co-developers are your most valuable resource. Translated, our comrades, you and me, are our most valuable resource to each other. Recognize good ideas from your co-developers. Share ideas. Perfection achieved when there's nothing is achieved when there's nothing left to take away. So simplicity is very important. And this goes back to release early and often. Keep it simple. Tools are often used in unexpected ways. Okay, and try to grab somebody else's idea and repurpose it. And here are some types of attacks, which, for our purpose, I would call them operations. Leveraged attacks. For example, where you put in and he uses the term return on investment. So you might think, okay, I'll put in $30 and I'll make 100, and I got an excellent return on investment there. But in this case, he's talking about systems disruption. And so, we see rebels in a place bust open an oil pipeline. Okay, how much did that cost them? All right, maybe $500. How much did it cost the oil company that they're fighting against? Millions. And the infrastructure there is vulnerable, it's fragile. So not only do they break the pipeline and does the oil company have to replace it, but there's a big mess, there's lost oil, and some oil didn't get to the United States or Europe or whatever on time. And the price of oil has to go up. So it has an international effect. One example of this, Jim Babb and I, when we did We Won't Fly last November, to open that project up in cash, we spent less than $100. I mean, probably less than 50. And yet look at the amazing impact we had. Not only did we have 3 weeks straight of mainstream media, which actually somebody contacted us to tell us, who does this professionally, to give us an idea of how much each appearance, he cataloged it and told us roughly how much each appearance was worth. I think in the end it was hundreds of thousands of dollars. So imagine we put in like $50 and we got out $100,000 in free publicity. And that doesn't have even account for the cost that this had on the airlines, the airports, and the TSA. John Pistol, the TSA guy, had to go away from his job and be on TV for a week to counter us. What it cost the airlines and the airports, I don't know. And it got the TSA to stand down for a day. So this is an example of a leveraged attack. And my challenge to you is see how little you can spend of your money, time, energy, whatever, and how big of an impact you can have. Swarms versus single group activity. Rapid innovation. Okay, you can check that out on at your leisure. Okay, just checking to make sure you guys are still with me. Excellent. Thanks. Another article from John, and this in the wake, this is a very recent article from January, this is in the wake of the Egypt thing. A plausible promise. Okay, I don't want you to think in terms of groups like Liberty on the Rocks or the Free State Project, the Libertarian Party, or organizations or corporations or anything like that. It's much more, what's the word? It's not tangible. It's intangible, the form of organization here. For a revolt, for an operation, for an attack, for whatever you want to call it, in order for it to have success, there are several things, but perhaps the most important is a plausible promise. Something that is going to unite, not just, in our case, not just libertarians, not just anarchists, not the people on your block, but a lot of people. People who normally wouldn't agree on much of anything. But you found something that you can get a lot of people to agree on. And if you can keep things, keep people from arguing too much about tangential things, you can keep it together. For example, We Won't Fly is, I lucked into it. but it's an example of exactly the kind of thing I'm talking about. We united people from all across the political spectrum, people who don't even care about politics, they hate politics. Statists, anarchists, libertarians, people on the left, people on the right, a little more people on the right than the left because of who's in the White House. But we brought them together with our plausible promise of roll back the scanners and the gropers. That was our plausible promise. It was our goal. And it was a goal that attracted people. You know, it can't be an ideological goal. It just can't. You have to separate the ideological from the practical. We went practical, and it built us a huge coalition. The other thing with plausible promise is, you know, for example, in Egypt, as you should be able to see here, the plausible promise was, or maybe you can't see it, no more corruption. You know, they're like, whatever. That was their plausible promise. But you have to, another thing is that it's important, not as important, but secondarily is you have to do an example op or active optimism or attack, whatever you want to call it, that shows your goal can be achieved. I think ours was the Meg McLean video for We Won't Fly when we got 1 million views. And so all these million or millions of people who felt isolated and alone and abused and helpless at the hands of the TSA since it had been building up for years, they saw that. And they saw not just the video, they saw the millions of views it was getting on YouTube. And they started to see the media coverage, and they said, wow, they did it. They did something. Wow, I didn't believe it could be done before. I had no hope, and now I have a little bit more. And so not only did we have a plausible promise, but we showed a little bit of success, just a little bit. So much so that people's cynicism was overcome. So I've been writing about this for a while, reading and writing and debating with Kyle Bennett, who's a very smart guy. And, you know, I came up with this goal, worldwide open source, peaceful evolution. And I was talking about this before. You know, it's not enough to downsize one state government or one country. It has to be the whole world. And it has to happen outside of this you know, this concept of national boundaries and all that nonsense. And you know, as you can see here at the bottom of the page, the demonstration is the truth that it can be done. That's what the term for what I was saying. When you show people it can be done, that's the demonstration. So you need the plausible promise. You know, you need to go out there and say, we're going to do it. We're going to do X, Y, and no, not X, Y, and Z, sorry. We're going to do X. And everybody's like, yeah, 1 million people tried to do X before. Psh, who's this joker? And then you do it. And then they're like, whoa, okay, this guy's onto something. I want to work with this guy. And I have a plan for this. I should say I stole the plan for this. I stole it from John Robb. Okay, this is not mine. He put together 11 principles for open source insurgency. And so I just kind of copied those. You know, copying's not theft, as Nina Paley told us the other day. And I modified them for us. And I added a step 0. And the step 0 is to liberate yourself. It's to get your head right. Study the principles of liberty and live them as much as possible without, of course, getting arrested by marshals and thrown in jail and all that stuff. You know, and this is very voluntarist inspired. As Albert J. Knox said, ages of experience testify that the only way society can be improved is by the individualist method. That is the method of each one doing his very best to improve one. Now, some voluntarists take this like, okay, I'm going to live my life absolutely perfect. I'm going to be off-grid, and I'm just going to focus on me. Me. Look inward, look inward. No, please don't do that. You can still serve as an inspiration, an example, and as a helper, a collaborator for other people. It is very important to stay connected. Okay, so the first principle is to break networks. This is about dividing the opposition, and never about dividing ourselves. So we want to remain as connected as possible, as is reasonable. We need to, we don't have to be unified, but we have to keep the lines of communication open. Now, for example, when Joseph Lieberman, the senator, picked up the phone and told Amazon to drop WikiLeaks as a customer, with one phone call, he broke our network, in a sense, because he divided us. There were people saying they were going to boycott Amazon, and other people saying that Amazon was the victim, and we should, empathize with them, and because they're overall a really great company. And I can see both sides. I've been a long time big Amazon customer, and I still am. But that's an example of a systems disruption attack. And that's how powerful they are. They pick up the phone and boom, they divided us. I think the We Won't Fly thing divided them a little bit. We have to keep working to divide them. Divide and conquer. That's not a new idea. There's a lot of The Art of War by Sun Tzu kind of stuff in here too. Grow black economies. This is counter-economics, agorism. We have to build the new in the shell of the old. Virtualize your organization. Okay, don't be putting down bricks and corporatizing and chaining yourself to stuff. We have to organize in a loose fashion. So if you want to do something, don't start a new organization. Don't start Americans for X, Y, and Z, libertarians for blah, blah, blah. And take membership dues and keep lists of your members and stuff like that. Virtualize it. What I try to do is, when I have something I want to do, I start an operation, like Anonymous does. And when the op is done, everybody, goes off and does their own thing. And it's a marketplace. So I say, hey, I want to do X. And the people who want to do it, we work together. And the people who don't, all right, maybe we can work together on our next op. Repetition is more important than scale. So don't do one big op. Do a lot of small ones. Don't be working on your perfect solution to everything in your basement for 10 years. No. Well, at least not with release early and often, there's got to be a lot of iterations to this thing. And if you connect it with the network, the community, then, it's the all bugs are shallow when you have enough eyes kind of thing. Cooppetition, not competition. For example, I am starting a mutual aid company, I guess you can call it. And I'm going to have a mailing list that sends out a real quick bulletin when somebody needs mutual aid. Now, I could set up my own server for that mailing list, but I'm not. I'm gonna put it within somebody else's, like some big website where it'll be a little bit hidden. And I could say it's only mine. I'm only gonna use it. Nobody else can post to it. No. Instead of competition, I'm going to try to do cooppetition. I'm going to try to cooperate. So I'm going to invite other people to start mutual aid services, and they can use the same list. So when their customer needs mutual aid, boom, they post to that list. It's shared. It's like a joint venture. When one of my customers needs it, boom, I'll post. And so we have a shared resource. Everything's in one place. It's not fractured. And, we all kind of own it together. That's kind of one example of cooppetition. Number 6, don't fork the insurgency. Okay, we cannot allow major disagreements to become more important than our shared vision. The way this works is we build large coalitions around very small issues. So, the minarchist-anarchist thing, I'm past it, all right? I'm trying to get past it as much as possible. Minarchists, anarchists, politicos, anarchists, we all have to find ways to work together. And as Jim Bab has taught me, hell, let's attack on all fronts. Damn, and let's cooperate, okay? Civil disobedience, politicos, legal people, direct action. Let's pick something. Let's pick an issue, and let's all attack it at once. Let's see what happens. It's just an experiment. Self-replicate. Okay, this isn't about cloning. This is about making more of ourselves. Okay, we have to find, we have to energize, we have to inspire, and radicalize more libertarians, more anarchists, more people who get this. Share or copy everything that works. Now, I've been guilty of this in the past. I didn't understand the anti-copyright stuff in the past. You know, don't worry if somebody's copying your blog post or your tool or your video or whatever. It's all good. We have to copy or share everything that works. So within this category, if you're doing a great bit of activism in your community, please videotape it, or at least write up a text summary of it and post it to your blog. And if you don't have a blog, get a blog. Because that's one way of sharing it. And if people see what you're doing, they can learn from it, they can copy it, or they can be inspired. And 11, release early and often. We know about that already. And 11, co-opt, don't own basic services. So for example, the mailing list I was telling you about for the mutual aid business service. I could set up my own server, and I could install Mailman or another mailing list management thing there, and I own it. And then if somebody wants to shut me down, I'm a single point of failure sort of now. Or if somebody wants to shut me down or the government takes my server, it's dead. At least it's easily identifiable. But if I do that on, for example, Yahoo groups or Google mailing lists, now it's a little more hidden. It's in with a bunch of other stuff. It's not so easily identifiable. Also, if you're co-opting things, that's money you don't have to spend or time you don't have to spend on recreating those things. Let's see. And I just want to finish up the talk. This looks like I'm still live. Let's see if I can. This is something that I think is really interesting. It's about being a first follower. Now, people are often, big on who's the leader, who's the guy in charge. But I think it's more important, or at least this video makes the point, that even more important is who is the first follower. Let's give this a shot.
If you've learned a lot about leadership and making a movement, then let's watch a movement happen start to finish in under 3 minutes and dissect some lessons. First, of course, a leader needs the guts to stand alone and look ridiculous. But what he's doing is so simple, it's almost instructional. This is key. You must be easy to follow. Now here comes the first follower with a crucial role. He publicly shows everyone else how to follow. Notice how the leader embraces him as an equal. So it's not about the leader anymore, it's about them, plural. Notice how he's calling to his friends to join in. So it takes guts to be a first follower. You stand out and you brave ridicule yourself. Being a first follower is an underappreciated form of leadership. The first follower transforms a lone nut into a leader. If the leader is the flint, the first follower is the spark that really makes the fire. Now here's the second follower. This is a turning point. It's proof the first has done well. Now it's not a lone nut, and it's not two nuts. 3 is a crowd, and a crowd is news. A movement must be public. Make sure outsiders see more than just the leader. Everyone needs to see the followers, because new followers emulate followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, then 3 more immediately. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point, and now we have a movement. As more people jump in, it's no longer risky. If they were on the fence before, there's no reason not to join in now. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, and they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. And over the next minute you'll see the rest who prefer to stay part of the crowd, because eventually they'd be ridiculed for not joining. And ladies and gentlemen, that is how a movement is made. So let's recap what we've learned. If you are a version of the shirtless dancing guy, all alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals, making everything clearly about the movement, not you. Be public, be easy to follow. But the biggest lesson here, did you catch it? Leadership is over-glorified. Yes, it started with the shirtless guy, and he'll get all the credit, but you saw what really happened. It was the first follower that transformed a lone nut into a leader. There's no movement without the first follower. See, we're told that we all need to be leaders, but that would be really ineffective. The best way to make a movement, if you really care, is to courageously follow and show others how to follow. When you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first person to stand up and join in.
Okay, so I hope that wasn't too loud. I'm not crazy about the word follower. I prefer the word collaborator. I like to call myself a collaborator, and I like to say everybody I'm working with is a collaborator. But I think that little video shows an important idea. It's not just it's not just, it shouldn't be recursive now. It's not just enough for somebody to stand up and, hey, we're going to do it, you know. It's also important to support the people. Also important to support the people who are already support the people doing stuff. So, you know, if a guy, you know, like Curtis is working on Porkfest, that's a great project and he needs help. So, okay, thanks, Todd. So, you know, people need to stand up and help him. And there's lots of stuff going on like that. So I'm going to take your questions now. And you can Skype in and talk to me on the air. My Skype username is georgedonnelly.com. So I don't know if I missed any of the questions. I probably can't scroll all the way back in the chat. Yeah, you can put your questions in the text chat or you can Skype me. It's totally your call. Okay, Alan's got a question. Basically, I've been exposed to a multitude of ideas outside the liberty movement itself. How do I talk to other libertarians who have minor disagreements and show them that we have similar goals to advance them? Yes, it's true. Especially right libertarians are... for example, I invited a right libertarian that is a good guy to speak here. And... you know, his immediate response was, oh, that's much too radical for me to be associated with. So, you know, some people are just not going to be receptive to this stuff. And for example, for We Won't Fly, I've had to deal with all kinds of people. And it really, I don't think it depends on ideological persuasion so much. For example, at one point it came out, and I never hid this from all these people, but it came out that I was an anarchist. And for some people, they're, I'm done with this thing. Which was kind of funny because Jim and I, two anarchists, were the only people who had the courage to stand up for all these people to the TSA. Nobody else would do it. But I think just to have to emphasize points of commonality. I think that's the most important thing. And you know, in the context of a mass thing, you know, where you're all working together for one goal, it has, you know, the points of commonality have to be emphasized endlessly, and points of disagreement have to be kept out. And this is kind of an incremental approach to liberty, you know, because there are points of commonality with everybody. And so if today we can identify a point of commonality with 30 or 40 or 51% of the population, if we can identify that, then we can move in the right direction. And then tomorrow we might only have 40%, or we might have different people, and then we can work with other people in a different direction. And it's very incremental, but I don't know. I hope that answer was useful. So, any other questions? And of course, you can Skype in and talk to me live. You know, all generalizations are not collectivizations. There is a difference there. Those are not synonyms. So, you know, not all generalizations are invalid. I generalize all the time, and you know, sometimes it's useful and sometimes it's not. Oh, cool. Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, Kevin said Leaderless Resistance by Louis Beam, that's on my reading list. And actually, I'm working on a project now. I don't know if it's called Mission Liberty. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of a business incubator. For example, Y Combinator is a business incubator for online businesses. And basically, it's people with experience in business who help other people start new businesses. And so I want to bring that concept into what we do. And so this is an incubator for ops, for activism events and things like that. And it's called Mission Liberty. And basically it's going to be collaborative. It's a collaborative effort. We already have our first project. It's called Op Common Sense. It's a pamphleting project. And so that's an incubator for leaderless resistance projects, and it's at missionliberty.org. Yeah, Alan, I think Alan says it seems fairly despairing, the idea that maybe only 40% will be there when it ends. And you know what? That's okay. I think we only need a few percent in the end who really get it. Because if we can neutralize, if we can get a lot of the rest who are kind of like, yeah, all right, I guess that's okay, that makes sense, and the rest who are vehemently opposed but are neutralized in the sense that we are so persuasive or powerful or successful or whatever that they're not going to actively resist us. If we can get to that point, we're good. And Kevin Carson at c4ss.org is recently, let's start back with John Robb of Global Guerrillas. He had a post about the system punked, P-U-N-K-T. And that is an interesting concept relevant to all this. The system punked is the place in any given system where if you assault it or attack it or hit it or break it or whatever enough times, the whole thing falls apart. The whole system breaks. And so Kevin Carson, building on that, who's an excellent writer that you can find at C4, for the number, ss.org, he wrote an article saying law enforcement is the state's system punked, and he made an excellent argument. And so I'm working on something that builds on that. That, you know, if both of those points are true, then cops, you know, then we should be able to get to the conclusion, possibly, that if we can neutralize cops, then we can get the space. You know, this is an evolution. This is a gradual thing. We can get the space that we need in order to do all these agorist and currency and intentional community projects, and, you know, garden in places where it's not allowed, all that stuff, live free to the point where we will be so powerful that you know, what's that called? A turning point. Darn, I can't remember that word. You know, a turning point will occur. There will be no stopping us. And so that leads me to the idea that something like copblock.org is perhaps one of the most important projects around right now. Because what it does is it catalogs police abuses, and that delegitimizes police if that information can get out to enough people. And so we've already seen over the last 30 years, cops have gone from being saints to the scum of the earth in popular culture. And so if we can get to the point where everybody believes that, and I think we're very close to that, and if we can get the market anarchist concept of demonopolizing police out there, then we can have a push. We can have a push on all strategic fronts: law, direct action, politics, lobbying, whatever, all those fronts. Demonopolize the police. Hey, Mr. City Council, look at all this stuff your cops are doing. Look at how much it's costing you. And this really dovetails nice with all the state and local bankruptcy that's on the horizon. Look, you can't afford them, but there's a better way to do it that removes all this liability from you, from all these cops out of control. We demonopolize the cops. Boom, demonopolized cops. We have hit the system punked of the entire system, and we are well on our way to the tipping point. That's the word I was looking for. Thanks, Kyle. Does that make any sense? And that kind of thinking is very much, you know, I've gotten that very much from this kind of John Robb, Eric Raymond. There are a whole bunch of thinkers in this kind of field. Now, I've kind of got, you know, Kevin Carson, of course. So more questions, please. Excuse me. Yeah, Dan McCall says governments require legitimacy. That's right. Kyle says fiction is a great way to spread delegitimizing means. Very true. Sounds Borgish, Charles said. Yeah, maybe. Sure, although with the Borg, there was one central person giving orders, so that was very much a hierarchical thing, wasn't it? Demonopolized cops. Good one, David. Nice, Josh. Yeah, start Los Angeles talking about outsourcing. Although no, outsourcing is different. It will be a challenge to distinguish this from, you know, Blackwater. That always comes up. You know, hey, demonopolize the cops, competing. Oh, you want private cops? Blackwater? No, this is not privatization. This is not Blackwater, not outsourcing. What I'm talking about is free market cops. Kevin Gee says competition will bring better service, so can privatize peace officers for hire, totally displace the public sector thugs. Well, I'm talking about Yeah, I mean, I think it's possible. I don't know. Having a private thing competing with a public thing, the public thing's usually going to crowd it out of the market. So the goal for demonopolization is not just um, it's for city councils across the country to totally divest themselves of their cops, spin it off. Alan Hall, George, how would you talk to folks from other countries? For example, I have a very good friend from Bolivia who gets the gist of our ideas, but still ascribes to the socialist rhetoric of that nation. Um, I speak to people in Colombia. I live in Colombia right now. I've lived in Colombia for a while. About it here. And I just try to squeeze things in from time to time. You know, the problem will be mentioned, and I'll try to explain briefly. You know, oh yeah, that's terrible. And if it wasn't for that damn government doing X, Y, and Z, you know, it wouldn't be so bad. And also for people on the left, um, you know, you often get an argument with somebody on the left. You really don't care about the homeless, though. You don't give a shit, do you? No, I do care. And that's why I want to get the government out of it, because they're screwing it up big time. You know, kind of an end run kind of thing. Yeah, Kyle says, show them how it will balance their budget and they will love you. And that's why we need an all fronts push on this kind of thing, because people who are in politics, libertarian politics, lobbyists, can relate very well to these people on the city councils. And it might be a little bit distasteful for anarchists to be lobbying city councils just because we don't really enjoy that kind of thing. And so, you know, for example, an all-front attack, you could have the legal guys suing them. You could have the politicos running for office on that campaign, on that platform of demonopolizing. You could have the lobbyists talking to them saying, hey, this is a great idea, blah, blah, blah. And the anarchists could be out on the street protesting or whatever, and or challenging, confronting cops, and starting our own cop businesses. And you know, if either it's either a way to show that it works great, or it's a way to get shut down and make massive publicity about how small business is being crushed. Kyle says, not privatization, marketization. I don't really like, I'm not crazy about the word market either, because people on the left react to it in a negative way immediately. I like mutualization or communitization, because people on the left love community. Let's see. Yeah, Colombia. It's a beautiful place. Colombia. Yeah, but I'm speaking in English, so. Let's see. Thank you, David. Yes, if you like today's talks, please consider donations to your top 3 speakers on the speakers page. We can't do this conference without the sponsors or the speakers. So please select your top 3 speakers and give them $10 each. All right? I don't think that's a lot to ask. So, I'm out of time. So I thank you very much, guys. I really appreciated your listening to what I had to say. Thanks for participating in the conference. Have a great day.